Hi, I'm Gemma. I've been at MoneySuperMarket now for nearly 3 months, 2 or 3 months, so I'm quite new. I've not been here that long. I'm going to talk today about inclusive UI design for the many, not the few. A bit more background about me. I used to work at an agency in Liverpool, and we did a lot of council websites, government websites, so we always had to consider accessibility. It was always a standard, AA accessibility. But since starting here at MoneySuperMarket, it doesn't. I'm seeing a few things that aren't considered on our website at the moment, and I must admit I haven't looked at travel or MSC, and Dan has mentioned that you are looking at AA accessibility across MSC, so I might be preaching to the converted, but I'll go through. So I'm going to talk about accessible and inclusive. What's the difference? Everyday examples of inclusive design, just to kind of ground that understanding. What's important? I've pulled out a few facts and figures and a few examples. I started for 10. So the first one, what's the difference? So accessibility is whenever we design a product or service that's specifically aimed at disabled users. So it's making sure that there's no barriers in the way for them to be able to use a product or service. And there's lots of the spectrum of disabled users is across such a broad range. It's hard to make sure that everyone's being considered. Whenever we do this with web design or products or anything digital, we always use these guidelines, and it's kind of like a checklist you go through and you make sure whether it's AA or AAA, and it gives you a really good understanding of what you need to make sure you're adhering to on a website. And that's great if we're at that level. If we're doing a AA accessibility on our website, that's brilliant. We're at a good starting place. But at the moment, there's also inclusive design that kind of pushes the boundaries of accessibility. So inclusive design is for everybody. So it's not just fixing the problem for a disabled user, it's making sure that that works for lots of different types of users. So this can be broken down into 3 different areas. So we have permanent, temporary, and situational. So permanent, maybe someone who has only one arm, so they're only using one arm to use a product. Temporary is someone who's got it's a temporary situation, so they've only got their arm bandaged, but they're still only using one arm. And situational is maybe, for an example, a mother holding a baby, and the baby might be ill, and she's trying to use the phone to actually look at NHS Direct, so she's still only got one arm available. So whatever solutions or design has kind of been considered for the disabled person will work for a range of people, and that's basically what inclusive design is, making sure that a lot of people are considered. So just a couple of examples to kind of ground this a little bit more. The first one is this button to actually access a door. So for a disabled user or someone in a wheelchair, this is a brilliant solution. They can push the button and it automatically opens the door. Whereas if we have doors that just open as soon as you as soon as you walk up to them, then this is great for anyone. You're not discriminating against disability here. It works for everyone. This is another example. I'm putting disability to one side. So this is a high chair for a child, and it's a product that works great. It's got a short lifespan, so the child can sit in this chair and eat easily between maybe 1 to 3 years. However, if you put intelligent design thinking into that, we can create a chair which actually spans the child's lifespan and could be used by any family member at any time. So we're considering a wider user group, and it's got a much longer lifespan, as I said. Another example are these steps leading up to a building. Now these are really hard for someone who may be in a wheelchair, obviously, or someone who's in crutches. There may be also a ramp to get to this building, but it might have to take a different path, and it just makes it a bit more awkward if they're in a group of people. To get around this is a perfect example of inclusive design, is putting the ramp and the stairs together, making it one experience for everyone, which is, you see a lot of these around these days. Okay, why is this important, and especially for MoneySuperMarket? So to begin with, more than 12 million people in the UK have a disability. So that's 1 in 5, 20% of the population. That's a large chunk of the population. I've got a graph here which kind of splits it up. So the left hand is male, and the right hand side is female, and it goes from 0 up to 80. So as we get older, disability increases. And a lot of people, as they get older, may not class themselves as disabled. They may be visually impaired, because as we hit 40, our eyesight naturally decreases, and they may have osteoporosis and struggle using utensils and stuff in the kitchen, or just using, they may need to pinch and zoom on the iPad or iPhone, and that wouldn't be classed here, because they wouldn't class themselves as disabled even though they have impairments. Next, I just want to look at at MoneySuperMarket, our customer segmentation. So these are the 3 different areas that we're targeting as our core users. We've got 25 to 34 sensible nest builders, and savvy savers and unbendable budgeters at 55 plus. So you can see that 2/3 of our target market, or who we're trying to approach, are in that upper age bracket. So if I just take that back to the graph and overlay it, you can see there a large section in the upper age bracket is what we're trying to focus on, and we really should be looking at accessibility and inclusive design to make sure that we're not alienating anyone or causing barriers when we shouldn't be. And one more statistic is this one. So it's actual UK internet users by age. So it goes top to bottom this time, 16 at the top and the older age bracket at the bottom. So the world we live in at the moment, our whole generation hasn't grown up with the internet. But I know by the time I'm 75, I'll still be using the internet as easy as I am today. So this age bracket's only going to grow, and the amount of people using the internet is going to basically be saturated at some point. And if you look at the 55 plus area of people using the internet, then that also is going to grow. So we definitely need to consider it. So in just 3 years' time, 50% of the UK's population will be over 50. So we can't really ignore inclusive design. It should be something inherent in everything we do. Okay, I'm going to have a look at a few design principles now, just to start for 10 things that we can actually do on the website or applications to make it easier for people. So the first one is consider situation. So people use your interface in different situations. Make sure your interface delivers a valuable experience to people regardless of their circumstances. One example of this is colour contrast. So it's making sure that people can actually really easily and it's legible, all the text, and the contrast isn't too washed out, because I'll just show this here, the menu at the bottom here is really washed out. It's a light grey, and on the colour contrast checker it just fails all levels of accessibility. However, if we take this and, so this Morris Homes is a new build website. So you may be out and about looking at new homes, and you may be on your mobile looking at it. There may be screen glare, the contrast may be, the brightness may be toned down because you may be in the house. So to kind of mimic those settings, it makes it even harder to actually see the navigation. And also the view development, the key call to actions on the website. So colour contrast is key. Another one I've taken from our site is don't just rely on colour. So here in the main body copy, the text links are just in blue, and my eyesight's fine, so I can see that, but if anyone who's colourblind or who are of older age may struggle to actually see, there's links to go off somewhere else, as you can see if I make it black and white. So just by adding underlines, that extra visual cue, or even making the colour a bit darker to add that contrast, just makes it stand out and makes it easier to see. I mean, they're really simple things, but they make all the difference. The next one is captions on the go. So here we've got a grab from Netflix on desktop and also on mobile. So it's making sure that users can actually have access to captions, and they can put subtitles on, and also they can decide what language they want, and it's just so much easier to use. On a mobile with captions on the go, maybe if users are using it on a mobile, it should just be default to have captions up, because you may be out and about on a bus, or you may be in the office where it's really quiet and you can't have the sound on. So it just makes it an easier experience to have that as default on mobile devices. Another one to do with videos are transcripts for videos. So screen readers wouldn't be able to understand what was in this video, but here at MBNA, on their videos, they've got a little link at the bottom here which says video transcript, and all that does is pull through the text so a screen reader can easily run through and describe what's going on in the video. And this is an example on our site for captions and transcripts on the videos. We've got fantastic, I think they're brilliant. We've got such great content on there, but unfortunately, there's no captions on there, there's no transcripts. Anyone with any impairments wouldn't be able to get this content. And they are quick wins, it's something we could apply now. So the next one is prioritising content. So help users focus on core tasks, features and information, and prioritising them within a content or layout so they can focus on stuff. So one good example that we're doing is the address lookup. So you can have an address field here, which is your standard traditional, where you put in your name and all the different levels of your address. You've street name 1, street name 2, city, region. There's a lot of information to be input there. Or you can just take it that next level and take the thinking out of it for the user. So all they have to do is put in their house name or number and their postcode, and it instantly pulls back their address. So it's such a quick win. And it provides a great shortcut, which is what we do now. It's a great example. Another one is the single question set. So on our website, there's lots of questions, there's lots of forms being filled in, and it can be really overwhelming. But if we can simplify this and just have it as a question that comes in on each page and it just focuses the user, then it's a much nicer experience. And also, I'm not a developer, so this isn't my area, but having spoken to one of the prototypers, he's explained to me that HTML5 and why ARIA are the best ways to produce accessible web content when developing. So on the left-hand side, this is a traditional way of, I suppose, building a site or a page, where you'd have your header and your footer contained in the body. And in the main, you'd have your header 1, your header 2s, your header 3s. And when a screen reader would read through that page, it would literally go top to bottom, so it would read down each one. Whereas on the left-hand side with the main wrapper, it's similar, but in this middle section, you've got nested articles, and each one of those would have a header 1. So when a screen reader reads through the site, they would read the header ones first, and then you can drill down further, rather than having to go through everything. It's just so much simpler. And also there's why ARIA. So ARIA tags give the browser extra information about what things are supposed to do, so it kind of gives them prompts to the user, like this. So the red ones are the ARIA tags. And a good example for this is in our results pages. So when there's a page and it's going to reload or it's going to show extra information, so the page isn't going to reload, but information will change on the page if you click a filter or sort. Then a user would struggle to understand that that's changed if they can't see it. Whereas with these ARIA tags, it will read out what's just happened. So it just adds that level, that extra level, to be able to for the user to understand what's going on. Okay, the next one is give control to the user. To ensure people are in control, people should be able to access and interact with the content in the way they want to. I've got 2 examples here. So this is visual preferences. So on the left-hand side with the Merseyside Police, this is just a cut from the top of the website. Straight away at the top, you can change the size of your font, you can change the contrast, you can even listen to the whole web page. They've just made it really clear and simple at the top that it could be anyone from the general public coming to use this site, so they need to make sure that this is really easy for them to get that contact, because it may be an emergency. Whereas the Manchester City Council website, the very top link is the accessibility link, which brings you to this settings page. And here you can completely tailor the design of the site, really, to make it so much easier for you to read. You can even change the text to Comic Sans if you want, to make it easier for people with dyslexia. Find that much easier to read, even though I wouldn't advise it. And then another example is scrolling content. So you can see the tiny scroll bar there, which dictates that this is a continuous scroll, it just keeps loading. And even though it's quite an efficient way to browse, if you've got a lot of content, it gets really hard for, so if people are tabbing through, they don't know when it's ever going to end. So to kind of mitigate this, the best way to do it would be to add a load more button, so they have control of what extra content they want to see. And also from our testing sessions, we found that the majority of users only really look at the top 10, and it's only the top 3 in a results page that they're really focused on. So there isn't really a requirement for this on our site, I don't think. And those are 3 principles that I've taken from this website, which is Inclusive Design Principles. I recommend you go and have a look. It's only been up there for a couple of months. I'll send the link round as well in an email after the talks. But it's got so much more in it. There's a lot more examples in there. It's brilliant. And it's been created by a group of accessibility and inclusive design specialists around the UK. So I highly recommend checking that out. A couple of books that you, if you're interested, you could have a look at. So the first one is Inclusive Design, Inclusive Microsoft Design. It's an actual award-winning website. There's loads of content on there, and there's loads of great videos to watch to learn more. They've actually videoed different types of users to get their frustrations, and they've tried to solve it. They've even got these inclusive design cards that you can use and go through to help you and make sure you're thinking about all those different areas in your design. And the other 2 books are just brilliant books. I highly recommend them. The middle one's mainly on development, and I guess the one on the right-hand side is a mix of both UX and design and dev. And yeah, I'm looking for any inclusive champions. If anyone wants to has any knowledge on it, or is, say, MSc are doing it at the moment, it'd be great to get your thinking on it so we can improve the way that we do it at MSM. But it would be great to start getting that in the minds of people whenever we do anything in the future. And it's for the many and not the few. And that's me done. Thanks for listening.